So there's a lot of availabilities, and this is an awesome crop, rotation crop for farmers, that are tired of making really low dollar on corn or grain or soybeans, whatever it is. This has a great chance to be a good rotation crop to have a farm make some money.
Yeah.
We want farmers to make some money.
Welcome to episode 30 of the Crownsman podcast. I'm your host, Jared Downey, and my co-host is Gowdy Molina, and she is in the building.
And I'm always in the building.
Hey,
when am I not in the building?
Trying to amp it up a little bit. Okay.
Oh my God, 30.
30, yeah.
That is crazy.
Coinciding with my 30th birthday and Rory's 30th birthday.
Not mine.
And not yours. No.
I just want to clarify, not mine.
22. That's amazing. I got to start off with a stat because this episode is, we have been getting requests for us to do this, a show about this for, well, since we started. People keep suggesting, you should do a thing about it. And so we have got someone in our studio now for the hemp, and which is a huge industry in the U.S. And I'll give you an idea of how fast the hemp industry is growing. In 2017, the Hemp Corp report said that in the U.S. there was over 23,000 of acres was cultivated across the nation. Wow. 2018, it went up to 77,000. So 3 times growth in 1 year.
That is.
So it's staggering numbers. Yeah. So we have Corbett Hefner. He's the vice president of R&D and business and development for Formation Ag, and he's come in all the way from Colorado, and he's going to be They actually do the equipment for harvesting.
Okay.
So there's this. We're sort of going on the industrial engineering side of this of harvesting the plant. It's just going to be very exciting. There's so much to cover. I don't know if we can even get to a tenth of it in the show, but it's going to be exciting. So
let's get to it.
Let's get sponsors from you, and we'll get going.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so we've got our first sponsor, Sean Daly, who has launched his book, From the Erksberg to Potosi, A History of Geology and Mining Since the 1500s. This book traces the history of mining and geology from the 1500s in the valuable silver mines of the Erksberg Mountains of eastern Germany to the rich silver mines of Bolivia, including Potosi. So again, this book is written by Sean Daly, and you can order the book online at Amazon.com, and we'll have the links in the description below for you. Also, our second sponsor is Savinaw Equipment. If you need anything from slurry pumps to jaw crushers to ball mills to conveyors, you can go to the leader of used mining equipment, Savinaw Equipment, and you can visit them at SavinawEquipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day.
Thank you. Has Sean Daly got his show launched?
That's right. He also launched a podcast, which you can hear on Anchor, Spotify, I think throughout many podcast platforms, and it is called Decipher Earth, and I'll have that also.
Did he? Has he released more episodes since because we worked with him on a couple, right?
Yes, he's only done a couple, I believe. He's working on getting the third episode done, so you definitely should go and listen to that as well.
He's a cool guy.
He is.
Yeah. Very well traveled in the mining sector. But we're not talking about mining today. We're talking about hemp. Corbett, thank you. Thank you for joining the show.
Thank you.
Long way to travel to join our little show, so we appreciate it.
No trouble.
I was talking to you before. I don't know if you've done. I know you've done some radio, but you haven't done this style cameras and lights and the whole.
Nope, this will be the first one.
Yeah, we've got. It's nice because with this, your people send us lots of pictures, so we're actually going to be able to see some of this machine. Sometimes when we're talking about the technology, we're a little bit limited in what we can show people, but this is going to be neat because we can actually show the products that you're making, talk about why they're from, show some pictures of the product that you're harvesting, so people get an idea of what's happening. So yeah, we're going to cover lots of ground today.
Good.
Okay. I want to start with Formation Ag. In a nutshell, what are they doing? What are they offering the industry?
We're building harvesting solutions and some processing solutions for the hemp industry. And the main goal behind these things is to increase the yield per acre for our farmers and try to help educate and bolster the industry in general
Right.
through doing this, because we're trying to study the plant and how the mechanism of how it's growing, why it's growing, what are we trying to do with this thing, and how can we help people do that through designing the equipment to maximize their returns.
Where did it all start? I mean, you look at the numbers when you're looking at an industry that's got 3 times growth. It's not hard to see that there's demand for hemp. And we're going to bring it up here in a second. I want to get to it fairly quickly so people understand. Well, for one, to understand that we're not talking about marijuana, the separating marijuana and hemp. But I want to get that sort of out of the way right away. That you're actually harvesting the hemp. Right?
Correct. That's all we work on is hemp.
Right. But where did that start? Or why did those products even start getting developed?
So this will be our 4th harvest for our equipment. We started in 2015. Our main business is in the oil field production equipment. And when the oil prices went down in 2015, we had a large crew of really good people, and we needed something for them to do. So one of our other salesmen at the point was just kind of doing some homework, and he says, "Hey, what about this? We build machinery. We're engineering and custom fabricators. Let's try to build something." So we designed the chaff or grasshopper chaff collection cart to be pulled behind the combine. We also looked at the industry and said, okay, the fiber market, we think at some point in time is going to be a very viable, very large scale market. So we built a decorticator based on the Slickton designs from the early 1900s. Built probably the first decorticator that I know of in the U.S. since the early 1900s. And just kind of evolved from there. We put that grasshopper machine in the field and harvested it and saw, okay, this is what we liked and didn't like, and kept evolving from there. When we did that for the first year or two, we found that the combine, the threshing, the impact of the machinery, conventional grain and corn equipment, was really detrimental to the oil content. So when I came on a little over 2 years ago, we looked at that and said, okay, how can we do this better and maximize the yield? Because we were losing between 50 and 90% of the oil content out of the crop by threshing it through a combine. So any of these impacts, if you really study this thing, to me, most of the degradation of the oil content happens during harvest when you've impacted it with a piece of machinery. When we get to some of these pictures, you'll see why. When you understand what you're farming as a farmer and an oil-producing farmer, why we built what we built, I can show you that.
Yeah, let's
pretty
bring
easily.
that up actually. While we're bringing it up, I wanted to ask a quick question though, because that's interesting. I assumed, because I know of the engineering side, I assumed that there was somebody asked for something specific, and you went, yeah, we can build that, or was it actually nobody had asked yet? You just identified it as a demand.
Yeah, we identified this as a demand, an emerging market. You were talking about the growth.
Yeah.
2017, 23,000 acres in the U.S. Last year, 70-some-odd thousand. The valley that we live in Colorado, in the Monte Vista, Alamosa area, there should be around 28,000 acres of hemp in our valley alone in Colorado, in south central Colorado.
Which is, I've been out there once. It is. Actually, we're going to look it up quick. Can we bring up a picture of that valley really quick before we bring up the other one?
Oh, the fields? Is that what you...
No, just of that
Just
valley
on
where you're
Google
from.
Maps.
You're right.
Yeah.
Look up Monte Vista on there.
It is.
It's a very large agriculture area. The main crop is seed potatoes and table stock potatoes and malt barley. So there's a lot of Coors and Anheuser-Busch type barley grown there.
Yeah.
In fact, we're right across the street from the Coors elevator.
Yeah. How do you
a
spell
lot of that?
Oh, you already got it. How do you spell it?
What's it? Alamosa?
Yeah, Alamosa.
ALAMOSA.
And so for I just want to bring up a picture of the valley actually.
There we go. Yeah.
And do the satellite image. You'll see all the circles. So the valley is kind of unique. It's set up on section grids, and then that's broken down into quarter section. On each quarter section is a center pivot because we're a high mountain desert, so there is really no rain. I mean, we get 6 inches of rain a year, so most of the water is pulled out of surface water
Right.
or aquifers. So when you look at it, when you zoom out a little bit, and then go to the north some, a little more. There, now you can start to see the
Oh, yeah.
circles, and then
Wow.
drag it down to your right. Monte Vista, a
Wow.
little more. Now go straight down. So a little bit more. Now you should really see
Oh
them.
my.
Look at
So
that.
our factory is in Monte Vista right now, but
Right
That's
here.
all circles. Every one of those circles is 120 to 140 acre field.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how we farm in that area. The farmers in our area, that's how they grow.
So were there many farmers doing hemp when you started?
No, really, maybe one or two in small scale. I mean, everything. So there's only been legal for 6 seasons. So this will be the
Yeah.
6th growing season in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
So I say we probably got more harvesting experience than anybody, and we've only done 4 coming up here. For large scale, I want to clarify that. I mean, our
Yeah.
equipment is very big on purpose because we're trying to do large scale acreage. Our machinery, even the smallest one, until you get between 40 and 100 acres, it probably doesn't justify. But hand labor and harvesting this crop, once you get north of that 40 acre limit, it really makes sense because our mid-sized machine will cut 7 acres an hour.
Okay.
That's a lot of product.
Yeah. So if you're talking 20 acres, it's
Yeah. Then there's other machinery that will harvest a half an acre an hour, an acre an hour.
Yeah, I've seen some of this, but yours is this heavy industrial,
Very large
yeah.
equipment.
Let's bring up the product you were going to bring up, Gowdy. Sorry to surprise that one on you, but
No, it's okay. So we were going to look at, sorry, which one were we going to look at?
The pictures of the close up of the plant. There's that stained microscopic view, and
Yes,
then
that's right.
the plant that I took with just my iPhone.
and now are you seeing are you seeing a big increase now even locally where you are? Are there
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of acres coming in, and now there's extraction companies coming into our area. Before they were trucking it over to the Denver and Colorado Springs area for extraction. So there's a little bit of headache there. Now people are actually building infrastructure there, so that instead of taking the crop out of the valley, they're doing the oil extraction, taking the oil out. Hemp is not very heavy, so it's hard to transport it. When it's green, it doesn't weigh but maybe 10 to 15 pounds per cubic foot. When it's dry, it's half that.
Right.
So you can't ship it effectively, without compressing it. Now we know when you take the dried hemp and put it into like a super sack or a tote, it wants to block together. It's so sticky and oily, it just blocks together. Now how do you get it apart?
Yeah.
So we've kind of come up with some solutions for that too. So we
That's
work
very
on all of
unique.
those things.
Okay, sorry. Having some technical difficulties
There you go.
There we go.
So this is a close-up of a plant in the valley I took, I think, last year or 2 years ago. And I just like to show that to ask the question, do you know what you're farming as a CBD oil or cannabinoid farmer? And, you're not farming the foliage. You're farming that little tiny drop of oil. You pull up that microscope view where it's purple, then you can see what you're farming is the trichome, that drop of oil is what you're going after. And that's what we're designing our equipment around, is to not damage that drop of oil when we're cutting it. So the goal of our machine is to be very gentle on it, put it into a truck, or you can dry it in the field in certain environments, but put it into a truck, get it into a building, confined space where you can control the environment. Now you can recapture all of that. So if you do impact the crop, you've got a chance through air circulation, you can control that.
Right.
So we make some flower and stem separation equipment that's got some vacuum chambers and special filters that we've worked on to help capture all these little droplets.
Wow.
After they're dry,
That's
they're
so
not a
interesting.
droplet, but that's the trichome. On top of that stalk is the gland, and then it secretes the oil drop.
Yeah.
So every time you impact that plant, whether it's combine, threshing, chopping, whatever it is, when you impact it, now that droplet opens up, okay?
Yeah.
So then the chemistry takes over. You can't stop that. It's going to oxidize. Your volatile oils are going to flash off, and you've lost your chance at doing a broad spectrum, full spectrum product.
Right. Does wind even can
sure.
wind? Yeah. Anything can affect that, right?
Yep. Yeah, anything that can rupture that. So high winds. If you're farming for grain, hemp is very shatter prone. So you try to be very gentle on it. We're trying to develop some equipment to harvest grain without a combine, just to be very, very gentle on the machine,
Right.
on the crop, so we can harvest the grain, the flour, and the fiber in one pass with one machine.
Yeah. This it's I don't know a lot about hemp coming in, and I didn't realize that it's actually like an oily, wet substance. Like if you touched it, how wet your hand, like you'd actually
It's sticky.
sticky on your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't come off either.
No.
No?
No,
Oh,
it's hard to
boy.
get it off. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was gonna ask. So what is this? What is it all being used for? Like, I wanted to actually clarify one thing. So you're harvesting, you're getting the oil off. And are you also getting now? Are you harvesting any of the actual plant for the fiber? You said as well.
Well, if your main goal is oil production, cannabis oil production, CBD oil, we're taking the entire plant or whatever part of the plant is actually producing oil. We'll harvest all of that whole plant, and then you have to dry it and get the flower and buds removed from the stalk. If you're farming for grain, that's a totally different practice.
Oh, okay.
There's
So
two different end uses. I always tell people, everything starts with a sale. What are you selling? How are you monetizing this crop, to make money for your farm? And then you work yourself backwards. So that's what's going to set it up. If you want to be a CBD oil producer, then you're going to farm differently than if you're trying to sell
I
grain.
see.
Because there's two different oils, two different crops there. Seed oil is totally different from the CBD oil.
Okay.
All right.
So what is the CBD oil? Where are the uses going for that?
At the moment, it's mostly human consumption, and you can't label it as a medicine, so it's just a health product or some sort of a supplement, if you will.
Right.
Then the grain, it can be for flour, for dehulled hemp hearts or hemp nuts, some people call them. They toast those. You put them on toast in the morning. People put them on brownies. I've had pancakes made out of hemp flour. They're really, really good,
Yeah.
especially with real maple syrup.
Yeah.
I love those.
Canadian maple syrup?
Yeah, some Wisconsin too. I lived in Wisconsin for 20 years.
Oh.
So, I came, my education is in plant pathology, and I farmed for a lot of years. And then somehow I got suckered into flexible packaging. So I made mesh produce packaging, automated mesh produce packaging. I innovated that way back in like 94, I think, is when I started on that.
Oh.
And I worked in flexible packaging until 2016 when we moved back to Colorado to be closer to our family. And then I did some potatoes for a while and then started doing this in August 2016. And it just kind of stuck on me.
Yeah.
It's fun. I like making machinery, so this is fun. I've done it my whole life.
And it must be sort of exciting too, being in sort of this industry. I mean, lots of industries you can make money in, but there's not many of these heavy industries now that are just this like fast track growth. That's pretty unique in the heavy industry sector. Yeah. So I wanted to clarify though, when you've got the oil, and then you said about the flour and that, is that the same farming as when you have to grow the stock, when you get oil after CBD oil, do you just get oil or do you get anything else from it?
At the moment, that is kind of the normal practice. When you're growing for CBD oil, most people are growing more of a tree-like plant, and the fiber coming out of that is a little different. So they're really focused on just the oil. I think long-term, as seed prices come down, as things get a little more stable here, you'll be able to kind of dual purpose it, if you will, and get a little bit of the oil and some of the fiber. I mean, for decortication, the fiber really needs to set in the field for a little bit and ret, which is the breakdown of the lignans, so that the fiber in the herd, the core of the plant, can be easily separated.
Yeah.
So it's a little different farming practice, Bill.
Yeah. I want to get a little more into your background. You talked about some of the different things, so I'll let Gowdy take over for a minute, and then later in the show, I actually want to bring up some of these machines so we can check out what you're actually making and sort of the designs and everything like that.
Sure.
So I'll hand it over to you, Gowdy.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, you kind of just started off. You're taking over my section there.
Sorry.
No, but I want you to kind of discuss a little bit more in detail of where you started before Formation Egg.
So I made automatically fillable produce packaging. So mesh packaging, all mesh bags, the half and half bags, which is part film, part mesh. We kind of innovated all that stuff way back in the mid 90s, and I did that until 2016. So potato bags, oranges, apples, onions, you name it, anything that's got mesh on it. I've made mesh bags for shrimp and walnuts and all kinds of fun stuff. So textiles, woven, knit products, non-woven meshes. I've converted all of that into packaging on flexible packaging format. So we're heat sealing bags together, different plastics. So it came out basically out of the plastics industry for the last 25 some odd years.
Okay.
And then got into this,
Wow.
which that's kind of when I first talked to the ownership and decided to come in here, the thing that got me interested is the possibility of biodegradable packaging. So I worked on that for about 15 years when I was doing this, because that's a need. I mean, plastics are plastics, and they do a lot of functions, but there's always a consequence, right?
Yeah.
So to come up with a true degradable plastic, we searched and searched and never found anything that I thought fit the true definition of biodegradability.
Mm-hmm.
Right? People, the consumer thinks when you put a piece of plastic out, if it's degradable, it's just going to go away. And that's not really what's happening with a lot of the products that are out there. They take some sort of an industrial process, heat,
Yeah.
water,
Correct.
whatever it is, to break it down. Even when you put an additive into a plastic and set it out in the environment, it kind of the microbes will attack that additive and break it into little tiny pieces of plastic. But did it truly break that down into its chemical elements? I don't know what's happening there.
Right.
So when I studied this before I took the position here, I thought, you know what, this might have a really good opportunity, the core of the plant, the herd,
Right.
to get the plastics out of there. There's some companies that are working on that. We started with harvesting and processing because those are the first two key pieces of equipment to get to that end.
Right.
You have to get it out of the field and you have to get it broke down so somebody can do something else with it. And that's just kind of what we worked on, because Power Zone makes big equipment and Formation Ag now we make large equipment
Right.
for large scale agriculture, because you're going to need huge volumes of this crop to fill, or to keep a extruder running. You
Right.
need large volume. I've talked to people in the paper industry, to feed. In this one instance, they had a guy who wanted to do particle board. I did a little math for him, and we think it was somewhere around 65,000 acres of hemp to feed one particle board line for a year
Yeah.
to keep that running 24/7.
Well, I was going
Right.
to say, yeah, like 77,000. The growth is huge, but the actual 77,000 acres
That's not a lot of acreage.
that's not much space actually being
Nope.
used for it.
No, there's a lot of acreage. I was watching some planting reports just to put it in scale. I think it was Iowa or Illinois when they were having trouble getting the corn in because it's been so wet this year. I think the number was 8.5 million acres of farmable corn in one of those states. I forget which one, but it was huge acreage. So just to put, there's one state.
One
I
state.
haven't ever looked up how many acres are farmable in the U.S. I really don't know,
Yeah.
but it's a lot. So there's a lot of availabilities, and this is an awesome rotation crop for farmers, that are tired of making really low dollar on corn or grain or soybeans, whatever it is. This has a great chance to be a good rotation crop to have a farm make some money.
Yeah.
We want farmers to make some money. They're
Yeah.
the backbone of the whole economy. I mean, everybody needs to eat, right?
Over 8 million in one state,
Mhm.
right? That's yeah. When you look at that and you go, and there's the opportunity for the growth. I mean, it's just unbelievable, right?
Yep. Smart
Um,
growth.
Smart growth, yeah.
With Formation Ag, how long have you been with the company?
Just over 2 years.
Just over 2 years. What was the biggest challenge kind of going into working with Formation Ag?
Just studying this crop, how it's growing, its mechanism, how it's working, and how can we design a piece of equipment to maximize the yield on it. That's what took the longest. And then, the one of the most challenging things is we only get to try stuff once a year in the U.S. We only have one growing season in the states that were legal at that point in time. Now that some of the southern states are coming on board, maybe we'll have 2 cycles a year. So I'm trying to get into even in the southern hemisphere so we can do even more. That's the biggest thing, is make a piece of machinery, take it out and test it. When you get one chance a year, you better hope you're right.
Right.
So we've taken that risk, and so far it's paying off, and we're doing okay on it. I'm not going to say we have all the answers, but we're sure learning quickly.
Yeah. I want to actually let's get into some of this equipment, because that's yeah.
Let's do it.
So you're on your, like, I looked through the website. You've got planting, harvesting, processing, decortization.
Decortication, yeah.
Decortication. These are these 4, and now is there one that sort of the processing seems to be the highlight though of what you're doing?
The harvesting is the main line of
Oh.
equipment that we build, harvesting equipment. And then this flower and stem separation, as the volume and this acreage comes up, it's going to have to be mechanized. A lot of that separation was taking place by hand. And people are developing equipment to do that, but the scale of doing it, we've got one grower that's grown 3,500 acres of it. How are you going to do that by hand? Labor is not an infinite resource, so
Yeah.
you have to figure out how to do that with technology and horsepower instead of manpower.
Right. Yeah. What
So-
so what machine are we looking at here?
This is our clean cut harvester. This is the one from 2018. The goal of that machine is just to cut that plant, lay it down on the conveyance belt, get it into a truck, get it into buildings so that then you can dry it, and then you can be a little more rough on the plant once it's in a building, because now it's in controlled environment. But you got to get it out of the field quickly. You've got about 120 minutes, 2 hours to get some sort of airflow underneath that crop, or it'll start to mold.
Really?
Mildew.
It's not, oh, sorry.
It'll get hot.
Oh, wow.
Actually, you can actually see it smolder after a certain amount of time.
Really?
Yep.
Like oil smoldering.
Yeah, it's breaking down. It's going to get hot and
Right.
eventually catch on fire if you don't get airflow under it.
So is this machine then, in comparison, what's the difference between this between something that's hacking down wheat or something like that? Is it, how is it, I know it's gentler, but how is it actually designed?
We're keeping the plant vertical with that large reel in the front. We engineered this for hemp. This was specifically designed for hemp. It may be similar to a swather, but it was on purpose
this
built
it
for
still?
hemp. So the reel is massively oversized. That's a 60-inch diameter reel. We hold the crop vertical long enough to cut it, and then we just push it straight down on the conveyor belt. We don't rake it. We're not impacting it. We're not beating it. It lays it down. If you go to our YouTube channel and Facebook channel or pages, there's videos that we put cameras inside of this machine so you can see it just laying down, and then it goes out of the side of the machine into the truck, as gentle as we can be on it.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It's not perfect, but we've got some test data from last year showing statistically no loss in the oil content over a 5-month period. So from we've got data from before we harvested and then after we've harvested.
Oh, I see. So you test it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to validate it, are we doing what we think we're doing?
Yeah.
So we're going to do some more study on impact of harvesting practices, trying to get to work with the local university and their chemist department to see, what other processes and what are the results from those things. So what happens after you impact that thing with a chopping head?
Yeah.
Because we know that after a crop was chopped and threshed, that you lose pretty much 50% almost every time you rough handle the crop.
Right.
We've seen that. We've seen it in 90%. And then if you're cutting into small pieces, it just makes drying that much harder. When it's whole, it's not as dense, so you can blow airflow through there.
So in essence, what you're trying to recreate is if I come out there with one plant, give it a gentle cut down, and then basically lay it
Correct.
flat on a wagon and pull it away. You're trying to replicate that as much as possible
Yes.
on a large scale.
On large scale.
Yeah.
So that machine will run through the field at 4 miles an hour cutting.
Right. What was sort of when you're trying to design something like that, what is that main challenge that you run into with that design? Were there sort of the hiccups, the first one that rolled out, you go, ooh, we missed that sort of
the
thing?
thing worked.
Yeah.
We just put it in the field and started cutting it and worked, other than the guy hitting a telephone pole with it. It just worked really well. And we were really blessed that happened that way. But we tried, when I'm laying these things out, we try to think out the process ahead of time so that we don't have a major issue. We modified some machinery last year. People had grown on tall, deep furrows, and they couldn't get down in the furrow and grab the lower foliage. So we modified some to run right on the ground, and we were getting dirt inside some of the conveyor belts. Well, it blew a couple seals in the motor because I never engineered it to carry dirt.
Right.
I engineered it to carry a really light plant. So that's quite a bit different than what it was. It was out of scope for the machinery.
Yeah. We run into
That's
that
okay.
quite a bit. Like even when you're talking about autonomous vehicles and things like that, it's not so much the technology that's the challenge; it's the environment that it's around that runs it. So that's a similar thing. Whereas so, and all this is flat, right? Like this machine is designed for a flat surface, or
Same width machine running in Kentucky over the rolling hills in Kentucky.
oh, really?
So yeah, it'll cut. We've got machinery running on 72-inch row centers over plastic, all the way down to 6.5-inch CBD crops that are planted with grain drills. As I was telling you earlier, as seed price comes down, people are finding these tighter row spaces. It's much easier to farm with the equipment that you have. So if you own a corn planter, you can plant this crop on your normal row spacings. You don't have to go out and get anything different. You can farm it just like you do your other crops. So you can use your corn planter. You can use your corn cultivation equipment. The harvesting is different, of course, because a combine is just really hard on there. A combine was never meant for a green plant with a 2-inch diameter stem. I mean, it's made for a dried wheat product. So it's just a little different. That's what those machines are made for.
You made a specialty. Actually, I'd like to bring that one up. You made I know it's not in full production, like you're not producing them, but you made this sort of unique, what was it called? A seed? It's actually a planter of
Yeah,
some
this
kind.
was a one row no-till planter we did for a guy that was trying to plant and did plant successfully hemp into an old field, into a pasture. So that was a kind of like a normal transplanter, except that wheel on that thing weighs about 800 pounds, so that you can punch down through old, really compacted soil. Popped a
Oh,
hole in there, and then they dropped a little seedling down in there and filled it out. So that was a
Wow.
custom engineering thing that we did for a guy. We haven't done any more of those because people would understand, having a little looser soil bed so that the taproot can go down and establish itself is
so
better.
that's sort of a
But
unique
it did,
one.
yeah, that was a one-off deal that we did. So, but we've done some of that kind of custom work for people. And
Yeah.
they came and said, "Hey, I need this."
But that's and we've talked about that. Your goal is to do it on that large scale, though. You
Mhm.
know, it's like this. I mean, how often are you getting people with these unique situations? Do you just sort of say like, no, we stick with this, or do you try? How do you work with that kind of?
Well, you kind of evaluate them and see what we think. Everybody's got a little different take on how they want to farm the crop. We made a couple of custom harvesters last year, some pickup units for people that cut and wanted to dry in the field. Then so you got a one row of a crop, and then you come through and you can pick it up. I got a couple more of those we're building. Just depends on your region and how you want to farm. For the most part, we're trying to get it out of the field so you can get it out of
Right.
the elements. It's because I was telling you, food safety is going to be a deal for people. So the more you can keep this clean, because you're making a product that a person is going to consume, the better off you are. So food safety is going to become a big key.
Yeah, and I guess if you're
Consideration.
doing it for, because this, what you're saying is this CBD is primarily obviously human consumption,
Correct.
so it goes under all those health and safety.
It will be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the
not
rules are
currently.
the rules are still being written. The procedures are still being written. It's kind of been a little bit of a free for all. But yeah, the food safety, as long as you're, when you grow potatoes, you have to farm under the GAP principles is one of the things. When I came out of packaging, we used the American Institute of Bakers criteria. Even you wouldn't think plastic bag, who cares? Well, we had our whole food safety program written around there, so that you're getting plastic that doesn't have heavy metals in it, doesn't have inks in it that have contaminants that can make you sick. Those kind of things you don't even think about because you want to be aware of that. I heard a story last year. Somebody had a one row modified tobacco harvester, and the oil, is so sticky, was sticking to the sides of the machine, and they were spraying diesel fluid on it. And I said, no, that's not a good thing. You can't do that. You've got somebody that's going to eat this. So you really want to
Right.
be aware of that as you're designing and building and your farming practices. You want to be aware that somebody's going to consume this at some point.
Yeah. Well, you said about it being so sticky. How are you getting it out? It must turn into when you're trying to harvest it and move it off onto, because that's a feeder that's feeding it onto the truck, right?
Yeah.
Does it is there a can it kind of bunch up and get stuck going out,
It hasn't been.
It hasn't.
It hasn't been an issue. I mean, there's some transfer onto the machinery, but it's not been huge. You can't 100% not rupture the crop. So you do get a little bit of rupture, but it's not been really bad.
Right.
I've seen other things where it breaks it up really bad, and then when it sits, it just comes out in a big old brick.
Right.
But we haven't had that issue yet.
Yeah. What are some of the other machines you're building? Let's bring a couple of those. So you got we looked at the harvester. There's a GCS grain cleaner.
That's cleaners, but like did he give you the grasshopper?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
it's right there. Yeah, sure. Let's
So
take a look at that.
this is a chaff collection. Go to these black ones. This is the new design. This is the one we're doing now. This is kind of a little different take. So if your main goal is growing grain and you still want to capture some of the flower and bud material for oil extraction, even though we know that it's been compromised a little bit, this is a chaff collection cart. So the crop comes out of the combine, the grain goes into the grain tank, the chaff we're going to collect out of the back of the combine, just the chaff, and then the straw will go out to the field. But we're collecting that flour into this machine, and then that'll get taken to an extraction facility, drying facility and extraction.
So this is actually for.
It'll still be CBD production.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
And then so you've redesigned this one then.
Yeah, the first unit this is about half the size of the original one. It wasn't very portable. If you had really large fields in one location, it was great for that because it was 45 cubic meters. This is 20 cubic meters. It's 102 inches wide, so you can tow it with a pickup. It's got electric over hydraulic brakes on it. Tier 4 motor, all the controls in the cab, so you can see the motor statistics, so your temperature, your RPM, the fan speeds, all the hydraulic controls. When it's in the combine, it's all wireless to the cab of the combine. So that, and it's going to be much more operator friendly. It's about 10 feet shorter, and the tongue weight's 900 pounds, so you can tow it from field to field. If you've got multiple growers and you want to use this machine on multiple combines with multiple growers, you can just drag it with a pickup to this machine, to these other farms.
What has the response been from the marketplace? Again, 77,000 is not that much, so you're kind of working with people going in as they expand to the market, though. Have you obviously you've got a chance to work with people that have been growing it for a few years. What's sort of their response to the machines?
They keep coming back because they're working.
Yeah.
I think I haven't seen a number yet, but there's probably going to be about 500,000 or more acres in the U.S. and all these other states that have come on board. We just get flooded with calls every time a state has another passage of their hemp legislation, and we're outnumbered on the phones.
Yeah.
It's a little tough to keep up, but it seems to be working. People are understanding the message. Be gentle on the plant so that as a farmer you can maximize your return to acre or per acre, because we really want these farmers to make some money in this. This crop is the perfect opportunity for an entrepreneurial farmer to really make some money and control the crop from the retail all the way back to their farm.
Right.
To the seed. So a guy that understands, here's a product I'm going to sell, and I'm going to do some retail stuff or white label or large bulk quantities, however they want to approach it. This crop gives them a real good chance to take control of that, because this isn't a granary type model thing where a guy grows a wheat crop or corn crop, takes it to the granary, and they write him a check. That's not how this market works. We try to tell people everything begins with a sale. You should have this crop sold before it ever goes in the ground.
Right.
If you really want to be successful, you should have this sold, because if you're trying to do it on the open market, who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
The prices are fluctuating quite a bit, so it's better to get this done ahead of time.
Yeah. Are there how much competition do you have? Like when you're going into when someone's contacting you, are they trying to compare systems a lot of times, or are you sometimes getting the quote and you're it?
For larger equipment, we're it.
Really?
We're it.
That must be a nice.
Well,
nice place to
we
be.
took a huge risk to get into this thing, and most companies just probably wouldn't have done that.
Well, that's what I asked. You weren't getting asked to do something. One of your sales people said, "Hey, take a look at this." That's quite a unique way to expand and to get a result out of that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, this was the first piece of machinery built.
Oh.
This grasshopper chaff cart. I mean, it was a huge piece of machinery. Put it in the field. You can see the videos online. It's a large piece of equipment. That was an enormous risk for a company of our size to take.
Yeah.
But we've got the people to do it. We've got a great staff of engineers and fabricators. We can build all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So this was just a take on it. And then we've expanded. We've got the harvesting, processing equipment, seed cleaning equipment. And the seed cleaning equipment, I'm using it in two directions. I'm using it for its conventional sense. I'm not truly cleaning seed, sizing seed. It's an air separation equipment, so it actually will kick out non-viable seeds. So before planting, you can use that machine.
Yeah.
After harvest, and you've got your dried flour in there, we use them in kind of in reverse, where I'm separating, if there are seeds in the CBD crop, we're taking the seed out so that the flour that we capture out of that machine goes to extraction, doesn't have the seed in it, because the seed oil and the CBD oil are different.
Oh,
So
okay.
you really don't want that in there. So our flour stem separation and the seed cleaning unit,
Do we have
we're
that?
removing all of the debris, for lack of a better term. We're taking the stalk out, the seed out, so that the extraction process is more efficient. If you take a plant that, let's, for round numbers, say it weighs 10 pounds, and of that 10 pounds, 1 pound is bud and flour that you're really interested in extracting. So why feed all 10 pounds of that into your extraction unit when you can remove 9 pounds of it and make your throughput on your extraction unit much more efficient?
Yeah. We
Right.
see that a lot in the mining processing.
Absolutely.
Same sort of principle. Get rid of as much waste as possible.
So this is we make the black piece in the center there that's under the cyclone, that tub grinder. We just use for a specific reason. We like that tub grinder. But then you see those big tubes on the top of there. That is a vacuum system with these special filters that we came up with, collecting the trichomes that have been dislodged from that process. So we're agitating the flower away from the stem, run it through the separation equipment. The fiber comes out the end, and the trichomes drop down onto conveyor belt, go into super sacs, and then the fine particles, the dust that's created in this process, we're recapturing that because that dust has got a lot of money in it. That's what a lot of people are missing in this thing. That dust is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I want to clarify because I want to understand that a little better. So this is now moving over to someone who's not trying to capture oil now. This is someone trying to capture the fiber and the seeds.
No, this is oil production. This machinery is oil production.
Oh, okay.
So this is removing the flower and bud from the stem. In this instance, the stem is scrap. They're really not super interested in the stem.
So this is just
for oil production.
Just for the oil.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So the seeds and that's getting extracted and just removed. It's not being
Just removed. We're trying to get that out of the stream so that the extraction process is more efficient.
Yeah.
Because the seeds are different. That's why we don't like the chopping and combining method, because when you dry this crop and you can pull some of the other products out, pigweed, nightshade, kochia, that stuff you really don't want in your process. So when you cut the whole plant, you have a good chance at removing that, because you're kind of working on a little differently.
So, you mentioned, currently there is no process to gather or to harvest all three aspects of the plant, correct? Right.
Correct.
And it's slightly different, grown a slightly different way as well. So
it'll be farmed totally different.
Totally different.
That machine will be for much tighter row spacings, 6.5, 7, 9-inch row spacings, maybe out to 22, 30-inch row spacings. Then these other prototype machines will go through and can remove the foliage and then leave the stem for fiber.
And currently, out of all the hemp harvesters, most of them are focused on the oil, correct?
Yeah, that's where the money is.
Okay.
But these prototype machines we're working on, we think the value long term in the crop and in the bigger acreage is going to be fiber and grain production. When people finally understand, there's still pretty good money in that. I think these, the plains of the U.S., the mid part of the country, is going to be a great area to grow this.
Right.
It really is.
It's so new.
Yeah, everybody's trying to make a quick buck on the CBD stuff.
Right.
I get it. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
if you do it correctly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They'll be successful.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to get so you're doing this machine back here. Actually, side question. I noticed it looks really cold. Looks like there's snow on the ground.
that is really cold.
So is that getting is that like testing, or can you actually store?
No, that was running in production right there. That
So you've already harvested, then they stored, and then in the winter you can.
This was northern Canada. It was 25 below zero when they took that picture.
Wow.
It was really cold.
So once you've harvested and you've stored it properly, then you can wait to process it. Then
Once the crop is dried to a point where it won't mold and mildew, you can store it.
Oh, okay, I see.
And then remove over time the rest of it.
And I wish I understood it better, but I don't. So you get all this extraction, so I understand that part. Now, what's left when you've got like sort of a tarry substance, or what's the actual oil that you're after?
Yeah, when it's initially extracted, it's really thick. To get it to flow, I've only been into a couple places where they do extraction. They have to kind of warm it up to get it to move that I've seen. Maybe there's other processes, but that's what I've seen. Yeah, it's a really thick, heavy oil, and then they break it down. When you buy a product to retail, they've mixed it with something. I think they use coconut oil. I think people are starting to realize the oil out of the grain is a good carrier for the CBD oil.
Oh, I see.
So they're starting to mix it so you don't have a combined product or a non-homogeneous product. They're mixing it back with the seed oil. People are starting to use that because the seed oil is fascinating. The 25,000 uses people talk about, most of that starting with the fiber and the hurd and the grain. Then however many cannabinoids there are out of that part of it. That's the fun part of this crop, and the challenging part is deciding what you're going to do to monetize it. How do you figure out what you're going to do and put your flag in the ground and start working?
Right.
That's the tough thing, because if you try to do everything, you're not going to do anything well.
Right. Yeah.
So.
So what do you? How far is the process that you take it to? What is the if a customer uses all your machines and their goal is the CBD oil? What are they? What product are they left with before they take it to someone who's actually going to process it into like the fine oil? What are they? What's the product that's sitting
So
on
at
the
the
ground?
moment, we cut the whole plant green. We are going to work on some drying equipment at some point. But after the flower has been removed for the stem, then that goes to the extraction. That's kind of where we stop. We haven't done anything in extraction.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's just there's a pile of people doing that, and we don't know much about it. So it's not what we worked in. We're an agricultural implement manufacturer.
So
Right.
this is basically removing the heaviest part of the stem is
Yeah.
what this is removing.
Yep, this is taking the stem out.
Right, and then you're left with it. Yeah.
Okay.
And
That seed cleaner's not. You don't have that up there yet.
oh yeah.
That's the GCS machine.
Don't think I.
Don't have that one
No.
up there.
No.
That's okay. We'll get that for you. You can put it out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Add it
We'll put it up right here. Yeah,
right
we'll
here where we're talking about it.
just- where do you see Formation Ag going? I mean, you're getting orders. Like this is, we've had some people that have technology they're developing, and they've got one order, they got two, but you're in full production.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, these are going out the door.
Yeah, we moved buildings because we couldn't, between us and the pump shop, we were oversold, for lack of a better term. So we bought another building in the next town over and have put in a manufacturing and assembly line. So we do our sub-assemblies in one region of the building and then bring everything together and assemble them. We're putting together, basically one a day in the assembly line.
Really?
Wow.
So and we're
One which product?
one of the harvesters.
One of the harvesters.
And we're sold out to harvest right now.
Wow.
As in, like,
Holy.
are you even back ordered now?
We've got a wait list going.
Yeah.
We've got a wait list started for 2020.
Holy moly.
And so I guess eventually other people will try to get into the market and do
Sure.
that sort of thing. Where do you see the products? Is there these improvements that you're already working on, or does this work? I mean, did you say it's 90% in the or 90%? How would you say it?
That's what we
Loot- not
lost when
loot.
we combined it. We're showing, like I said, statistically zero CBD oil loss in this harvesting process. So we made a lot of changes from the 2018 model to this one, and we'll do the same process as these go out in the field. And I ran almost all of them last year myself, and we'll send. I can't do them all this year, so we'll send other people out. My engineering team
Yeah.
will go out and we'll ride these things and work on them and study them and get results and feedback from people, and we'll make another list and we'll re-engineer and redesign and make improvements. We're
Yeah.
constantly doing continuous improvement work on this stuff, whether it's to enhance the oil content or to enhance our assembly processes. We always have to keep improving. We'll make something different for next year than we do this year, and then adding more equipment on as we go along. As we see other bottlenecks and other needs in the market, we'll keep engineering towards that. We're the only company that I'm aware of that totally only engineers for hemp. This is all we do at Formation Ag right now.
Right.
Is there something in particular that you'd like to kind of focus on for the next coming years?
We'll keep improving the CBD harvesting machinery, and then this other prototype machine that I want to be able to harvest grain and the flour off of a more call it a dual purpose crop, but a more grain oriented crop
Right on the other
without a
side.
combine.
Without a combine. Okay.
That's the next thing that I'm working on,
Yeah.
Okay.
because I think that piece will be really interesting. As I was saying earlier, we think the grain market is going to be more stable long term, and easier for people to farm. It's just going to be a much easier crop to get into, and the uses for the seed oil are the same thing. There's 1,000 uses for it.
Right.
If you look up at the original patents for paint, you used hemp oil, paper stock. I mean, the paper industry and the fiber industry, that's where some of that's going to come from. You're going to farm this, a true fiber crop, you usually plant at 50, 60 pounds per acre, the seeding rate, and you'll harvest it before it ever goes to seed or flower. Well, if you can plant a grain crop and get the grain revenue off that, get some revenue off the buds and the flour for oil content, and then take the fiber and get some value out of your fiber, Now you got maybe possibly 3 revenue sources. It sounds like a pipe dream, but I think it's really possible.
Right.
And then for larger scale, a lot of these farmers are already set up for this. They already own grain equipment. So they already have, a planter. This machine we're building for harvesting, they have drying equipment. This seed separator, that's why I have that, so we can separate the seed from the flour. I needed that air separation equipment, so we put that in and are working with that. So when we harvest the grain and the flour, it's going to go through the seed cleaner. The seed will come out and the flour will go out, and then those two go to their own revenue streams.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hope I'm not asking it, sort of the same question in a different way. But
no, it's fine.
when you're talking about a mixed in the paint, the oil in the paint cleaner or in the paint.
It's a carrier for the pigmentation in the paint.
Is that the original? Now, are you switching over to a different type of oil extracted?
Yeah, that's the seed oil.
That's a seed oil. Yeah.
Yep.
So the seed oil is that's actually within the seed. So that's not on the outside.
Correct.
You don't stuck it. You actually have to essentially break that open and
they'll cold press the seed to get the seed oil.
Yeah. And so you're working on that process now. Yeah.
Yep.
And how far away is that before that comes?
We'll have it in the field in September.
So you're full ahead on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going in the field. It's sitting at the
fantastic.
shop now. I'm just waiting for a crop to get mature enough that I can run it.
Oh, I see. When you talked about farmers, and I mean, again, I've been out to your area, so I mean, you see it. We saw it in there from the aerial satellite view. Is it how much of a real opportunity is it for them? Are you seeing farmers that are swapping out those into the hemp crop? And is it 5 years that they start to make money? Is it if they know how to grow it within a year? Can they start to?
Oh sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you can get the crop sold before you plant it, they're making money immediately on it. I called it a rotation crop in the beginning of the conversation. But for potatoes, it's a great rotation crop. They're doing some studies on it where when you follow or you put potatoes in after hemp, they're seeing nematode suppression in the field. So where we are table stock potatoes, nematodes is an issue. It's a physical defect and an appearance defect on table stock potatoes. A little baby worm, right? When they plant hemp and then come in with potatoes the next year, the nematode counts are almost non-existent. They're trying to study the mechanism. How is that happening? Why is it happening? Where do they go? Did the nematodes cross the fence to the neighbors, or did it kill them? They're not sure yet. Which to me, as a pathologist, that is fascinating. What is the mechanism and where those nematodes went? Hemp is a great uptaker of all kinds of stuff in the soil. So if you've got a place that's questionable, or you want to get heavy metals or pesticides or what have you out of, they call it phytoremediation. So you plant the hemp crop and you can't consume it in that day, but it will pull those things out of the soil. And so you can remove it, so you can clean your soil up. Soil health as a farmer is what you're worried about.
Right.
And you want to have good soil health in your fields. So hemp is also an uptaker, but when you cut the crop and let it ret, a lot of those nutrients will leach out of the crop and go back into your soil. So you're not taking everything out. It's a fascinating plant, it really is.
Yeah. Is there the stigma of it? Has it is there a hemp stigma now, or have people kind of moved on? They understand that the difference between marijuana that someone's smoking and someone who's harvesting hemp for CBD oil and seeds for paint. I know, Vancouver is fairly popular when it comes to. It's known for smelling it when you're walking down the street. And honestly, I still don't know a lot about it. Do you find there is, if you walked into a regular room and talked to people about it, and you're talking about farming hemp, do they understand the distinction?
Not yet.
No.
That's why we do these kind of things. There's still a lot of education to happen. Even look at some of the meetings they had, I think a month ago with the FDA. They still don't completely make the distinction that it's really not marijuana. There's nothing. They're really a different crop. They're different strains. So it's kind of interesting that the public reception is shifting, but I think the education component really is still coming into play here, and we have to keep doing that because that's going to help create demand for the product.
Yeah.
When people say, okay, I'm not going to consume this and I'm not going to compromise myself. There's no THC in it. I'm not going to be having all the issues.
Yeah.
They still need to work the cannabinoids. I'm told you can still test on a drug test. I'm sure that's after a lot of use, but yeah, it'll still show up on a drug test. So if you have a commercial driver's license, you should be worried about it. If your
Right.
company is drug testing. You need to have that conversation with them, make sure we've got to keep educating and learning that and make the distinction. And I think that's going to help the marketplace and the demand for the crop.
Yeah, because it was. Because now that I'm starting to understand it, it's hard to understand that it was illegal, but it was actually illegal to grow hemp.
Right.
Right, 5 years ago, right? Or no, 7 years ago in Colorado, it was illegal.
6 years ago was the first time you could grow industrial hemp in Colorado.
Which is such a strange.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing that would even be,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's not that much time. And now, how many states are you allowed to now? It's not all across, is it?
Oh, is it up to 44 now? I think. I'd have to go look. Last time I looked 41, and then I think I saw 41. Or 44. I don't know. Well, it's federally legal as of December 27th.
Right.
Hemp in general, because of the 2018 Farm Bill, is federally legal, but the states still have to write their rules and submit it to the USDA. So that's still going in the process. I think is it next month? Some of the federal rules are going to start coming out, and that's going to help a ton because once those things are defined, there's already a few companies doing crop insurance. The banking issues that the farmers are running into. Once all those rules get written, that's going to take some of the bankers and make them feel better.
Right.
So they can keep their operating loans. Water, there were some, at one point a year or two ago, there were some issues if you had federal water. They didn't want you using it for hemp growing because it was still classified as a class 1 drug.
Right.
So the Farm Bill was supposed to take care of that. And it's coming.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate they passed the Farm Bill and then the government went to shut down, so that kind of made a mess. But
Yeah. That's the tough thing, and I sort of realized because in Canada marijuana became legalized, and I'm not even sure what's going on with the hemp. You probably have a better idea than me, but when something's illegal, the laws are written for it to be non-existent. They're trying to eliminate it. So now all of a sudden you flick a switch and now it's legal. Like you take, let's say, the alcohol industry or the lumber industry or wheat or any of all these massive industries, they've had years to sort of perfect the systems. Now you throw in a switch and you've got a couple years and people are starting to grow it and sell it and move it and transport it and build machines for it. I mean, it kind of turns it into a mess that, technically shouldn't have never been there. But that must just be, so there must be a huge challenge for farmers, manufacturers, people that are trying to get it to the market, because all of a sudden the lack of regulations, because it switched from an elimination regulation to a processing elimination regulation, right? That's what's going on?
yeah, it's a total switch. So it's you have to be really, really nimble to keep up with the market at this point in time, and it can be challenging. For instance, when the Farm Bill passed, Kansas people, we were getting just floods of calls from Kansas, and then as they drafted their rules and the things came out, one of the first things that one of the details, and devil's always in the details, right, was they at that one point in time they required certified seed. Well, everybody wanted to plant huge acreages of CBD. When they said, well, how do I get a hold of certified CBD seed? Well, at the moment, there wasn't any. So then, I forget exactly what happened, but something, it was down to where from large acreage, they can only grow 5 acres, and then they'll write some exceptions or what have you. So whatever that state is, I haven't looked at their rules in a while. But that really, it went from a huge ebb, and then it just stopped because they didn't know what to do. And then if you don't have a clear, defined set of rules, do you want to risk your business with that? Do you want to risk your farm by trying to do something and getting in trouble? So it kind of slowed everything down, which was a good thing because that was going to be a huge challenge.
It's a process that does need to happen, or
Yes.
else you do end up with real issues. When you see, again, going back to 77,000 acres, are we talking 8 million? I know you obviously don't have a crystal ball, but is there enough uses for it to be 88 million worth of an acres in just the U.S.? Is that
it will be is these markets develop? For instance, fiber. Decortication is a really interesting machine and process, But until textile people want it, cordage people want it, plastics industry people want it, those things
On
are
a
all
large
in
scale.
their absolute infancy.
Yeah.
It just, everybody wants to get in there, but okay, where do I sell it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to, do you want to make rough cordage for something? Do you want to make a textile? A true textile made out of hemp takes several processes to get it to a point where you can weave it into a fabric.
Right.
It's a lot more intense than just saying I'm going to corticate it and I'm going to make a textile. It's not
Right.
ready for that. It's
Yeah.
got to be degummed and cottonized and washed and cleaned, and now you can make it into a filament where you can actually do something
But
with
is it competitive with other products? So,
at some point is a lot of that equipment and fiber, even up into World War II, some of the carding combing processes were done by hand. Well, we don't have the labor availability in Canada or
Yeah.
U.S. to do that by hand for sure. So we're trying to innovate some of that type of equipment because it just flat out didn't exist.
yeah.
We've seen some older machines that would kind of card or comb the material, but before the crop was fed into that, somebody carded it by hand over a big chunk of nails and a board. I went to a museum where they did a lot of cordage, and there's pictures of hundreds of people with boards with spikes in it, and they're taking the stems and dragging it across those spikes to break it up.
Yeah.
Well, we can't do that, so now we got to figure out how to do that mechanically.
Right.
So we've sunk a lot of time and effort into trying to figure those techniques out, and we're still working on them, and we're somewhat happy with them, but not happy with them.
And because now that next stage where you actually turn it into textiles or whatever, if you can figure that process out, how much easier or more efficient or economic does it make it for the next? Or is there a whole new system that needs to be figured out for that? Is that sort of dated as well?
Our fiber equipment, our goal is to try to get it to a point where it can go into the existing cotton fiber infrastructure.
Okay.
We're not there yet because the fiber length of hemp, cotton is based around a couple of different fiber lengths for upland cotton and Pima cotton. So all the machinery was built around that. The hemp product, our goals of our equipment are longer line fibers, so you can get more strength out of the textile or whatever you want to do with it. You can, we can decorticate them and make a long fiber. You can always cut it down to something. Can't ever make it any longer. So that's kind of how we've been working towards fiber equipment. But we want it to get to where we can seamlessly put it into the existing infrastructure. Same thing with plastics. When they get the herd and they get a true resin pellet that can go into the plastics infrastructure and go into an extruder and make a blown film or a rigid packaging, whatever they want to do with injection molding. Once you can get to that stage and you don't have to completely innovate all of that equipment from scratch, it's going to make a huge change.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got to do that all, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in machinery.
Yeah.
Versus getting it to a point where you can use what you already own.
Yeah.
We like people to use what they have. If we can get something that is a drop-in, for lack of a better term, that's pretty interesting to people.
You can make, you can go, theoretically, there could be a day when instead of chopping down as many trees obviously take longer to replant and process. There are a lot of uses for hemp that could replace that, and you can grow a new crop every year. That's sort of that long-term term idea. Now with it being legalized, there is as long as the market will accept it, which will come down to price and efficiency and all that, it's really only going to be the technology that'll hold that back from happening. Is that a fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's kind of, if you look at the history, how hemp and marijuana got banned in the U.S., starting with the 1937 Tax Act, and then going back through there. If you read any of the Slickton papers, it got killed because he started decortication because he was worried about deforestation back in the 1900s. So he was a German guy that built equipment, and I'll paraphrase, but he was working with Temkin, the Temkin Bearing kind of people. Temkin took it out and showed it some of the big shots on the East Coast, and it's an opinion. They said, "Oh boy, my paper infrastructure. What am I going to do with all my forests, all my paper mill, all my lumber mills? I don't want that stuff out there." So they kind of put it on the back burner, and then finally when the Tax Act passed, that's what killed it. But it's going to change a lot of perceptions when we can get that back to the point where we can quit cutting trees down and use a renewable crop.
Yeah.
And I've got some paper sitting on my desk that's 100% hemp paper. and you can run it through an inkjet printer. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and it's coming. I mean, people are working on it.
Yeah, I mean, you can get it if you really want to find it.
Mhm.
There is, but not on that mass scale where you
No.
go to the store and it's
And
it's
it's
just
there.
there.
Blended paper, you can find hemp
Yeah.
blended
Yeah.
with whatever with normal paper infrastructure, but this is 100% hemp paper. It's really slick.
Yeah.
Wow.
I said at the beginning of the show where we've gone through an hour, and I mean, it's sort of one of these things where every topic we've touched on could be its own show because there is so much information and even the designs and the machines and that. So, yeah, hopefully we get to unpackage it more. It's going to be interesting watching it year over year. You look at Formation Ag, seeing what you're going to roll out, and how that coincides with what the industry. I think that's going to be quite probably for you as well, but for us watching, it's going to be quite an interesting thing.
It's fun. I'm a builder. I like to build stuff. I'm not a great maintainer. I love to build things and innovate new things. So for me, this is a perfect industry. It's just fun. I don't know when it'll quit because there's just so many different things that we can look at, and people come to us say, "Hey, can you build this?" Sure, let's take a look at it.
Yeah,
Can we do it? Can you make money at it? Can we make some money at it?
yeah,
See if we can make a business out of it.
yeah. No, it's great.
I'm curious, what's the biggest project you've done so far?
Oh, well, probably getting all these harvesters put into a manufacturing facility and building those on scale is a project. Nobody's going to see it other than
Yeah.
people that come through the shop. But moving from the original pump shop into this shop, my first day in that building was in December. With this Formation Ag was me and the guys in the Power Zone shop, and then January 2nd I hired a guy in the Formation Ag shop. Now I got 18 or 20 in there, so that project in itself was giant. The next projects we're working on are the decortication equipment and trying to get it combed out a little bit and get all of the herd off. We've decorticated and separated the herd from the fiber, and I don't use this number very often, but we have 100% separated it, but it's entangled. I can't get it all out because hemp fiber is just nasty stuff. I mean, ask any of your Canadian farmers that have been doing it for 20 years, hemp fiber is just nasty. So we're trying to work on that a lot and get it to a combed out, almost carded state so that it will drop into the cotton infrastructure a little better. And then this grain harvesting that'll take the grain and the flour in one shot. That's another project that we're working on quite hard. And then the flower and stem separation and the seed and flower separation, that piece of equipment. So that'll be like a plant facility infrastructure deal where we place this production line in a building to help the extractors optimize their processes. So
Wow.
we're one or two that we're playing with and putting in, and we have to build this from scratch. None of it exists. So we do this and evaluate it and say, okay, I like this part of it, didn't like this, let's try another step. I like this part, didn't like this part, let's take another step. So when we find people that are innovative and entrepreneurial and understand that this is all a research project, everything we're doing constantly is really research and continuous improvement, and they can understand that and they're accepting of that, that's the kind of guys we get to work with and customers we work with that we really make some good progress is people that are innovative like that.
Right.
Because it's not going to be perfect. If you think this is perfect and you come in and order it off the shelf and you drive it off the parking lot like a car and everything's rosy, you're in the wrong deal because this is truly innovative equipment. We're going to try different techniques and some of them are going to work and some of them aren't.
Yeah. But the payoff potential is high.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, we're certainly going to be following it. It's pretty exciting. I'm really glad we talked to Don, months ago about possibly he was on the show and then talking about you coming on the show. So I'm glad it happened because it's amazing information.
I'll come back. I like Vancouver. It took me this long to get back up here. We've just been tied up.
Yeah.
Now that we've got some other people on the team that can help me get freed up to do this kind of stuff because education in general is what's going to help the industry keep building, and we want to help contribute to this building industry. And so coming out and speaking with you all is a really good thing for us.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for doing it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on the
Thank you
show.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll do a quick sign off. Do we have a camera? Gone?
That's a good question, actually. Do we have this camera all set to go?
Okay. Well, if we're not,
Let's make sure.
all
right.
Okay, so that was episode 30.
Yes.
Did we learn anything?
3-0. I learned. Whoa. That
Yeah.
good question.
I
Absolutely.
learned that I have more questions about it.
Yeah, I think with every topic was just like a rush of questions, and you kind of have to pick and choose which one you want to
Yeah,
answer.
it's exciting when you get to see something from that's new, but it's in production. I love the stuff that's like newly innovated. You know, they got a
Right,
prototype.
yeah.
I love that stuff, but it's not as proven. There's not a customer out there right now, but it's in the field. It's actually
Right.
working, and that's what makes it exciting. Um, if you've got a product like that, let us know. We'll have you on the show.
Yeah, always.
Okay, Gowdy, where can everybody find the show, watch the show, listen to the show, subscribe to the show,
Well,
comment on the
before we
show?
get into that, maybe you should talk a little bit about us and our.
Well, yeah. We've started doing on the show. The guests can come on, and
Mhm.
it's always free for them to come on.
Yeah.
But we have sponsorship options on the show. We have guests can also do specials. So if we kind of cover the companies that we have on and the industries they're in on sort of a macro level. We can also do specials for you. So we've actually just set up the studio for that, and people can actually come in, and it's shorter form. It's 20 to 22
Mhm.
minutes, but they can sit there, have their videos playing. We've got a big monitor, a bigger one than this, a big monitor in the back. We can edit in video footage. It's really digging into what they're producing, either the service, the technology, the equipment, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
it's sort of a good opportunity. It is a paid thing, but you get full rights. We have the rights to this footage. The person who comes in and does these specials actually gets full rights to the footage, so they can take it, edit it to however they want. Plus, they get our audience too, so it's sort of a double value. So that's
Great.
what we're working on, and of course, helping people if they want to make their own show that they don't have our brand on it, just your own show, which is a really powerful tool. So I hope
Yeah.
you'll check that out.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, but yes, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Groundsman Partners. We've got an episode every week. We did have difficulties last week. It happens, but the episode was launched this week, and this one will be launched at the end of this week.
Yeah,
So you
on
will,
Friday.
yes, you will see it Friday, like always. You can also join the Crownsman podcast group on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram, what else? LinkedIn, all at Crownsman P. And you can listen to us on Spotify. Let's see if I can do this.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Breaker. You don't even have them written there. And there's a few more. I think it's like Pocket Casts.
Wherever you get your podcast.
You can listen to us.
And of course, I think you already said about YouTube.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please go to all those places we just said, or even one of those places. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have you on the show. We'd love to help you make your own show. Whatever it is that you need from us, we are here to help. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you the next episode.